Hello and welcome to Dave's Delightful Dishes. As always, I'm Dave and it's a delight to have you here with me today, guys. And today, the key word of today is easy. We're coming off of the holiday, which was Thanksgiving, and it's time to not spend all day in the kitchen. Plus, it's colder. We kind of want some warm comfort food, and maybe you don't want to have to slave over a stove all day to make it happen. So today we're going to work with a slow cooker or a crock pot. And what we're going to make is brisket. So for starters, this is a cranberry horseradish brisket, and we're going to make it in the slow cooker so you can set it in the morning, and when you come back from work in the evening, it's ready to rock and roll. So I have a 2.5 pound piece of brisket, but depending on how many people you're having, if you're having like 8 to 10 or you want to have a lot of leftovers, maybe you can go up to a 4-pound brisket. First or second cut. Doesn't really, because the brisket's got two sides to it. Doesn't matter. Whichever one the butcher has, whichever one looks good to you that day. We need 12 ounces of cranberries. And so I don't burn myself, I'm going to move this off to the side here. 12 ounces of cranberries, fresh or frozen. I happen to live in bog country, so I've got fresh. 1 cup of red wine, dry red wine. Now today I'm using a Malbec, one of my Malbecs from October of 2021. I call it Windsurf. But you can get your wine at the store. You certainly don't have to make it yourself. I just happen to enjoy doing that. 1 cup of beef stock. And a 1/2 cup of water. I have a 1/2 cup of sugar. Just granulated white sugar. A 1/2 cup of prepared horseradish. Now, what that means, if you're going to the store to get it, you get it in a jar and it's already got vinegar in it. Or you can get the fresh root, peel it, and then put it through your food processor until it's all minced up. And then you add some salt and you add some white vinegar until it's absorbed that. And it gets a little spongy. And believe me, you can smell when it's ready because it's like macing yourself in the face. Wonderful. A 1/4 cup of honey. It's nice to use local honey if you can get it, but if you can't, there's always honey at the store. 3 tablespoons of tamari soy sauce. So tamari is a type of soy sauce, and it's going to have a lot of umami, so you want to have that. That's going to add to the flavor. A 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and that's because we have to sear off this meat before we put it in the crock pot. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this crock pot open, and I've already had it up, so I've had it on high heat so that it's warmed up already. And I'm going to put in the cranberries and the sugar and basically almost all the ingredients. The cinnamon, the horseradish, the soy sauce, the red wine, the water, and the beef stock. Oh, and you can hear it sizzle a little bit, which means that it's up to temperature. Now I'm going to put this honey in, and that's going to be everything that goes in here right now. And using your rubber spatula is definitely a good way to do that, because we don't want to waste any if we can avoid it. Now we got to stir this together and let it combine. And I have this set at high for 6 hours. All right, that is stirred up. It's going to continue just kind of combining and starting to cook. I'm going to put the lid onto that. And then I have to take this brisket over to the cooktop. And now you could do this if you preheat your crock pot and get it nice and hot beforehand. You could sear it in the crock pot, but I like using my cast iron. But if you're trying to just do this as a one-pot meal, the first thing you would do is put that brisket in with the olive oil, get it browned on both sides, and then add all the other ingredients, or pull it out, put the other ingredients in, and then reintroduce. But I got a nice oven and a nice stove right here, and I've got a nice piece of cast iron. So we're going to go over to that and sear off this meat. So we have the cast iron at high heat, and it is quite warm. So I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of olive oil. If you want to use canola oil as a substitute, you can. And we're going to put this on here. And we're not trying to cook this. We're trying to just let this sear. So I'm going to sear all sides. And once it's brown on all sides, we'll get back to the crock pot. Okay, as you see, this has now got a quick sear on it. I've seared all of the main sides, and this is going to go into the crock pot all day, so I don't have to worry too much. But you do want to sear it in just to keep all the moisture from escaping. So this 5 minutes that I spent searing both sides is well worth it in the total process. And now we're going to go take this over to the crock pot. Okay, so now all we got to do is give this a good stir. And the smells are already very interesting coming out of this with the horseradish and the cranberry and the honey. I think this is going to come out and taste really good. And I got to put the meat in, and I want to kind of settle it in here. And then I want to use my little rubber spatula to get it settled in as good as I can and get some liquid up over the top. Now, if you're going away to work or wherever, you can just set this and forget this. But if you're around the house and have a chance to look in on it every once in a while, you can always just make sure that there's a little bit more liquid that pops back on top. But as this cooks, the meat is going to get smaller, and it'll end up, and also more moisture is going to come out of the cranberries and out of the meat. So don't worry about it. It's going to cook itself completely. So I have this set on high for 6 hours, or you could set it on low for 8 to 10. We're going to check back on it in about 6 hours. Now, this one has a warm setting, so once it's done cooking, it'll keep it warm. If your crock pot doesn't have that, it might be time for an upgrade. They're not that expensive, and it sure is nice to not have to worry about, oh, I have to be back exactly in time or I might overcook my food. So use that, keep that in mind, and I'll see you this evening when this is done. So it's been all day, and now you're back, and you can smell the house smells amazing. And this is switched over to warm. But we're not quite done yet. Just a couple more little things, but these is going to take the amount of time it takes you to set up the other things you're going to have with this. So we need to, first off, we're going to get the meat out of this just briefly. And it's going to be very, very tender, so that's why I'm using a wide spatula, or a long spatula. And now what we need to do is we're going to slice this against the grain. Now the grain's going this way. So we're going to slice this in pretty decent slices. And it can break into chunks, and that's fine too, because we're going to chunk it up later anyhow. It helps if I grab a fork. Trying to just make do with what I had, and there are better ways. But it is so tender that it is just falling apart on my knife. And there is a fat cap on the bottom there. So, we're going to take these chunks, and we're going to put them back in now so they can get completely impregnated with this liquid. And that'll also leave them to stay warm, because this thing's on warm setting now. And I'm going to trim the excess fat cap off at this point. There we go. And this is going to keep this moist, and this is going to let it hydrate back up. Because one of the things you'll notice when you're doing long, slow roasts, not all the time, but sometimes you'll find it's like, wow, it looks so good, and it's been soaking in liquid all this time. Why is it so dry in the middle? Well, we have 2 ways that we're going to solve that. The first way is this, by putting this in. This also lets me get rid of this excess layer of fat here. Yeah. Yep, that's good. So, I'll pick through this last little bit and put it in. But while this is going, and it's just going to sit and stay warm. I've taken a couple ladles full, call it a cup to a cup and a half's worth of the liquid out, and I've put it in a saucepan here, and I've got it. I brought it to a simmer, and I'm simmering it down till it reduces by half. Now, you guys have seen me make sauces before, so just taking the liquid and concentrating it down. We want to get it so that it's looking very thick and syrupy, and there's bits of those cranberries in there. So at the last minute, once I've got it at the texture that I want, I can take my immersion blender, and I'm going to just puree everything so that it's a nice sauce that I can pour over the top. So we're going to let this do its thing for about a half an hour, and I'll get right back to you once we are ready to plate. All right, for finishing touches, what we're going to do is we're going to plate. This has been sitting for the time it took for me to reduce the sauce that goes on top. And for my side dishes today, I created a smoky paprika vinaigrette over steamed asparagus. It's got bell peppers. It's delicious. Look forward to an up-and-coming side dish Saturday. And, of course, a salad. I'm going to leave that on while we're getting the meat in place. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to put down... Ooh, that is warm. So when you put hot stuff into a metal container, sometimes it'll do you wrong. So we're going to take a mad scientist hand, and I'm going to put a little lake of the sauce down. And then I'm going to get a chunk of this meat with a couple of the berries on it. I'm going to lay that down in it. And another chunk. Very nice. And this is as hot as it was before, so using my extreme memory, finger in. And I'm going to ooze a little bit of that over on the top. There's my salad lid. Away goes the bad scientist glove. And there's dinner for you. Now, you don't always have to have a starch with dinner, so I did 2 vegetables and the meat, and there's plenty of sugar in the sauce, so I figure you're kind of halfway there already. So this is really easy. This didn't take a lot of effort, did it? We have to make the sauce, but you could also get away without doing that. You could just serve this just as it is without having to reduce and make a gravy out of it. But I'd like you to try it at home. Give it a try. Let me know. Tell me if you think it's easy, because I sure did. And if you don't have one of these crock pots with automatic settings on them, get yourself one, because it's amazing. It makes a big difference rather than just sending it to high or low and then having to make sure you're back in time. In the meantime, send me comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about this or anything else you might like me to try. I'm always up for the challenge. If you haven't already, hit like and subscribe, and hit the bell so you can find out when I've got new things coming out. And I'm heading up on my 50th episode this coming week. So keep an eye out. There might be something a little bit special. Have a wonderful evening, and I hope I see you next time.